Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Healership Path. My name's Rita Hickman, and I'm here with Irma Francis, and we are here to help women take their lives to another level, whether they would like to heal themselves, heal the people that they love, or start a healership sort of practice. We've found that only when we come together is when we are able to make the biggest difference in the world and stay on track. Because I know if you're anything like me, it's very easy to get lost in the world that we live in. Because when you're sensitive, when you want to make a big difference, we tend to be surrounded by a lot of people who are very focused on survival. And we want a little bit more than survival. So we're here together to start a movement and really keep us all engaged and keep the conversation going and connect on a meaningful level. So if you want to make some differences in your life, all you have to do is sit back and relax, or multitask if you'd like to, and listen to what we have to say. And the reason being is because when you relax, new ideas plant into your subconscious, and when they do that, then it becomes automatic. Your beliefs and your paradigm starts to shift without you even trying. So just by listening to this today or watching us today, you'll start to make a big change in your life, and that's very cool. So today, our topic is the art of communication, correct?
The art of communication, specifically the art of listening.
The art of listening. Awesome. So we're going to talk about listening today, and we've got a few topics that that they're under. And they're quirky and fun. So every Thursday, we're going to be doing Naked at the Poker Table. It's all about the ecstasy of intimacy and being close to one another, having our hearts open, and the importance of the art of listening in connecting with people on a real level, in getting them closer to us so we can finally get our needs filled for intimacy and connection that we just don't get in the normal everyday world. So, Irma, would you like to tell me a little bit about some of your thoughts about the art of listening today?
Sure, of course. For me, I think everything, all of our topics, everything that we're doing together, for me, all leads back to presence. And there's no way to truly listen to another person or reach that place of intimacy without being present. And in our society and what we value, a lot of times it can be hard to be present because of what we put our values on. For me, a top value is listening. And that's the main thing for me is everything for me leads back to presence and kind of grows out of the present.
Mm-hmm.
All the good stuff, especially intimacy. So as I was thinking about the art of listening and what that means and how it shows up in myself and how it shows up in another person is in intimate relationships. That's one thing, and it's another thing with clients. But in intimate relationships, and the art of listening is, am I giving the other person my undivided attention? And to me, that again is about being present. How present am I with the other person? That opens up that door to intimacy. And if you're listening to somebody share from their heart, and you're not present, they don't have your undivided attention. Which means, for me, that I take myself out of the way. I'm not listening to them with the idea of what is my response going to be. So it's not a debate, it's a dialogue. And there's safety, there's sacredness in that intimacy that comes from the art of listening. And to me, honestly, all the beauty that I experience in life comes from that place of being fully present with what is. And if we aren't doing that with the people that we are most intimate with, we might want to look at that and question what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you always been a good listener? Because it sounds like you have been.
I think I have, because I think what I've always been is present, and from that place, it's just a natural outcome.
Mm-hmm.
To be really, it's tuning into the other person from a place of caring, because you want to know what they have to share. You want to know who they are. And of course, when you are a good listener and you are present and you're out and about in your life, people pick up on that. And so there has to be an awareness of when does it become dysfunctional listening, which it would become dysfunctional listening if you're being drained because you're listening so much. So,
have you ever had trouble listening? I mean, have you ever been in situations where your mind just couldn't settle or focus?
No, I think I always listen. Yeah. Yeah. Because my main focus is being present. So there's no way to be present and not pick up on all the subtle things that are happening around you, including listening.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've never, because I know I've struggled sometimes with being present, whether I don't feel well or I have an emotional charge that's going on or I'm working through something. Sometimes when I get upset, I have a very difficult time being present to the other person because all I can feel are my own emotions, and they're so overwhelming. Especially if I'm angry at someone, you know, I know the best thing for me to do is to be present with them, but I'm not able to because I feel my own anger or my own worry or my own discomfort too much. And so I just wondered if that had ever happened to you, and if it did, how you handled it.
Sure. Well, absolutely. I've been angry and in conflict with people. But there is that awareness for me that most likely if I've become angry and conflict starts to happen, it came from something that was triggered from the other person. Maybe they weren't present. Because when we're not present, we can hurt each other. Our awareness disappears when we aren't present. So have I been triggered by other people? Yes. And how did I handle it? I have to take responsibility for my own self in those moments and say, okay, what's bringing me out of this present moment? What got triggered? A lot of times, if people aren't present and they're doing something that's harmful, it's coming from fear. Something fearful in them, something fearful in me. And so then it turns into, instead of heart to heart, soul to soul, it's ego to ego. And a mentor of mine, I love his little things that he's given me that I can carry with me. One thing he said to me is egos bump into each other and souls merge. And so in my inner circle, it's really important to me to have people in my inner circle where it's heart to heart, soul to soul, where there's a merging instead of bumping into each other. I kind of got around your question, but...
So it sounds to me that because you like to be present, you've surrounded yourself with other people who will be present, so that you don't have as many, you've purposely created a beautiful life where you don't have as many distractions or things pounding on you from people who aren't present and people who have issues where that they need to work through, that you've really, in order to stay present, you've created a world around you that helps you stay present.
Yes, absolutely. And a big part of that is what I do and how I value presence and the principles that I practice to stay present. And I wish I could say that all the people around me, that our family, there's lots of different people around me. No, they certainly are not present. And I've just over time come to accept that and grieve the loss of realizing that they might not ever be. And so, so the acceptance of that takes away the triggers.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're able to stay present because you look at them from a loving kindness.
Yeah, and acceptance of and that's the truth, really, of everything in life. Things are what they are. And I usually get out of my peace and out of my presence if I'm attempting to change something out there.
So you said you had certain tools, or at least you referenced it, that you had some tools that helped you stay present. What are some of those?
Being in my body rather than my thinking. Because my thinking will take me to the past or to the future.
Okay.
And out of the present moment. And I've just come to know over time, everything that is beautiful in life and becomes full is in that present moment. So I actually am aware that when I'm missing the present. So how do I find my way back there? Sometimes it's through going for a walk in nature. Sometimes it's through creative writing. Sometimes it's through being conscious of my breath. Filling up my senses. Those are a few of the things. How about you?
For me to stay present, I usually have to make sure that I have time every day to reconnect. If I don't have that time, then I feel empty and I get caught up in the world. So if I don't take 20 to 30 minutes, sometimes an hour, depending upon the day, if I don't take enough time to see and feel and think everything that I need to without judgment, then I get caught up in all the things that need to be done. So because I know my tendency is to be very affected by the people around me, I get caught up in their energy, because we are in a world where people aren't present and they are very, or they're present to their own needs and their own feelings, but not to anything else around them. And it's easy for me to get pulled in to their energy. So I've had to create environments and schedule out time in order to make sure I get that. And some people think that I'm inefficient about things that I do. I get complaints sometimes that I'll walk to the kitchen, 5 or 6 times, that I didn't get everything all in one load, or I take the roundabout way to get where I'm going. Or that I'm content and okay when it takes a long time for my computer to load. Because generally speaking, those are the times, they're the little special times that magically occur that give me an opportunity to reflect and reconnect. So I schedule in time every day to listen to what I'm feeling and thinking, so I can reconnect with me. And then I take advantage of slowing things down, inefficiency, in order to use those stolen moments. They're almost like stolen moments where you can say, hey, how am I doing? Maybe I should get some water. How am I feeling? So I've always sort of liked inefficiency, because it gives me a lot of extra time, magic time during the day, when I can come back and be present, think of a song that I love, or a poem that I love, or a memory, and get reconnected to what matters most to me.
Mm-hmm. So what you're doing in those moments is you're being intimate with your own self.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And isn't that important?
It's very important. And then I also create an environment around me, a physical environment, that reminds me of who I want to be. Because I get very caught up in things that I'm feeling, and a lot of them aren't mine. A lot of them are the feelings and the energy of the people around me and what's going on, because they're hectic, and I have a hard time at parties, and I have a hard time in groups and crowds, because I feel so much of that energy. And so I purposely create environments and keep anchors and totems around me in order to remind me of what I value the most. Because otherwise I'll get lost.
Yeah.
So I create things to help keep me on the path.
Yeah.
And it can be textures that I love to touch. It can be colors that I like to look at.
Yeah.
It can be putting flowers around my house, or planting flowers in my garden. I have a good friend who taught me to plant my flowers where I can see them best. So that when I look out the windows, that I'm the one looking at the flowers, and I've got a good view.
Yeah, it's not for the neighbors. It's not the image that you're presenting for,
And I always thought that flowers and gardening and things like that were for show, were for the neighbors. It was presentation of your house, curb appeal, or whatever it may be. And they really helped teach me to think about myself first, because as a healer type, I have the tendency to not do that. I have the tendency to think of other people and what their needs are and how I can fill those, and what will bring them joy and delight, instead of thinking about what the view that I'll have of the flowers and of the gardens and what I enjoy and what I like. And I honestly think that's a very common problem that a lot of women have. We're encouraged to, if you're sensitive, we're encouraged to be the ones that bring joy and light and happiness to people around us, but we don't think about bringing joy, light, and happiness to ourselves. And when we do that, that's what keeps me present. I give from an overflow.
Yeah, as I've heard you say, you fill your own well. Which is so important. Yeah, something I wanted to say, thinking back to your question about people in my life, and I built my life in such a way that the people around me are present. I just happen to have people around me that I absolutely love and adore, that are what our society would label as ADHD.
Okay.
Hyperactive. It's hard for them to focus and have attention, and So, but honestly, I actually, my eldest son definitely would have been labeled by society as ADHD. I did not do that. He was never on medication. Was he high maintenance? Oh, yeah, you betcha. But I saw so much beauty in that. Oh, my God. And so much creativity came out from him at a young age, because that's his journey, that's his energy to be that. To me, it seemed like, oh my gosh, he's like the Energizer Bunny. He's never gonna stop, and it's never gonna be quiet. And because that's my preference, because that's me, that's my journey, that's my energy, that's my soul. But oh my gosh, the recognition of allowing the people that you love and honoring them for who they are, not trying to make them fit into what you think is the way to be, because that's what works for you. That would not be a loving thing at all. So I just happen to have people around me that are pretty hyper, but I love it. I absolutely, and I'm present with that.
So you've got grandchildren, and how do you hope to teach them the art of presence?
You know, I have just a really brief story. How old was Logan, my first grandson? I think he was only about 2.
Mm-hmm.
And he is another one of those little people in my life. High energy, oh my gosh, and the creativity, and oh my God, he's a trip. I had a moment with him, and I've had lots of moments since, but he was 2 years old, and he was at Grandma's house. And it just so happens that his dad is my eldest son, who's really hyper.
Okay.
So, you know, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So Logan is high energy. Beautiful. Love it, love it, love it. But I thought, you know, I want him to also know that experience of slowing down. And let me see if I just hold strong to that presence, to that peaceful energy. Let's see if I can get him to attune to it. He did. So we had this moment, because he was like pretty much bouncing off the wall.
Sure.
You know, in his way. And so I held that energy. And he's all over. And with the intent of, I want to see if he can tune in.
Sure.
He did. And he kind of just moved towards me. I was sitting on the kitchen chair, and he moved towards me. He got up in my lap and snuggled. And we sat in presence, in that peaceful, present energy, where it was just the two of us, and that's intimacy. It was just the two of us, and here, Grandma and this 2-year-old, we sat there, I would say, over a good hour, without a word being said, just absorbing the present moment and the peacefulness and the bonding that was happening without any words being said.
Now, have you been able to do that with adults as well?
I have.
Great.
Yes. If somebody is open, well, you know what? They don't even have to know what's happening. And it's not that I would ever intrude on somebody's space.
Right.
But there is an attuning that can happen, a tuning in that can happen. And yes, I've had people say to me, you know, I get together with you and there's the world out there that I come out of, and then I come into this, and this is like a different world. What's happening? And I don't say anything. I know what's happening. What's happening is we're, you know, you kind of are coming into my world of slowing down, and I see you, I hear you, I'm here. That presence. And so, many people have said, why is this so different? And that's why I think.
I think a lot of women, and I'm sure, you know, the women out there as well, if we're on this path, we find that experience quite a bit, where people enjoy being around us because we help shift their energy. And, you know, I've heard all sorts of tools and tips to protect yourself or to give you a little bit of bubble wrap from other people's energy, so it doesn't trigger you, so it doesn't pull you out of your presence. And so, you know, especially in, let's say, the massage therapy trade, you're definitely in somebody's space, and there's a science behind this. People can feel what we're feeling or what anybody else is feeling within about 3 or 4 feet, because our cell receptors for our emotions, they vibrate. And the more we have of an emotion, let's say love or peace or anger or frustration, the more cell receptors we have for those. And so we're generally putting off a wavelength. You know, we're like a radio station. And if we spend a lot of time in peace, then we will give off the peaceful vibe. And when people get into our space, our peaceful vibe can entrain them. But sometimes if they have a lot of anger or a lot of really strong emotion in them, even if they don't say anything, it can overpower us because we've got such a sensitive antenna, about what's going on. And so it can be difficult to have a healership practice and working with people who aren't present, who don't know how to manage their energy, and they come in with all sorts of things going on. And there are tips and tricks like surround yourself with a golden bubble, or give them herbal tea or something that's calming, to use scent and music in order to calm people down. And I use those tools quite a bit, where I create an environment that's calming, so that it doesn't all have to come from me, calming them down and in training them. But the biggest tool that I've had so that I don't get as triggered is I keep having life experiences that help me understand different points of view. So I put myself in the place of victim or victimizer, of predator and prey, of sick and well, of too stressed out or not stressed out enough. And I really surround myself and look for those experiences and work through them so that when someone comes into my space, it's easy for me to recognize where they're coming from and to see it from a wider perspective. It doesn't catch me off guard. I can say, I know exactly what it's like to be that angry for that reason, and this is what helped me. And these are the words that help, calm me down and level me out, and this is the music I needed to listen to, and this was the essential oil I needed to put in the diffuser. So I learned more and more and more about myself and all the aspects that human beings go through, so that when someone comes up into my space, whether it be someone that's close to me or someone I've just met, that I can feel their energy and not and go on the journey with them, always being present and knowing that, okay, this is part of the path, and this is how we're going to get where they want to go. So information, self-information and self-wisdom about all the different shades and colors that people come in has been the best protection or guard from other people, so that I can be present to them, that I'm not pulled out of my energy or out of my state of mind because they are so intensely, because they're vibrating so strongly. Do you find that?
Well, I find that if I go to judgment, that's what pulls me into their energy.
Okay.
So I kind of have a rule of thumb, which I prefer rather than self-protection and bubble, and I don't think you believe in
No,
in
not
that
at all. I don't
either.
like those,
Yeah, so my rule of thumb is, so I don't have to walk around defensive and protected, is everything is free game. Whatever you feel, whatever you think, whatever you say, whatever you do, free game, as long as you aren't hurting yourself in front of me or hurting me. Pretty simple. So if somebody is angry, I can sit with it, and leave it. It's their anger. That's their experience. It's okay. What I won't sit with, and this is why I don't have to protect myself and feel if they turn the anger onto me, because then I'm in harm. Or if they turn the anger onto themselves in my presence, then I'm responsible because I've invited them into my world. So I feel a responsibility if somebody is harming themselves in front of me. So I would, say something or do something. But to me, that's a pretty simple rule, and it takes all judgment away.
Have you been in situations where you were caught off guard and you weren't able to stay present because somebody's energy was so powerful and overwhelming?
Yeah.
So what did that feel like? What was that like for you?
because it came on so quickly and so strongly, and it was directed at me, I used disassociation.
Okay.
Yeah, to get away from it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, it's like my essence, my being, naturally took care of me. But what happened because of the disassociation, I wasn't able to do things that would have made logical sense. Because in the disassociation, I left my logic also. And one of those things would have been leave. Because I attempted to get them to leave and couldn't do that.
Right.
And then that kind of triggered me into the disassociation. And there went my logic, and I never thought, oh, I could leave.
I think that happens for a lot of women, where we have bosses or spouses or friends who don't manage their energy well. And so when we least expect it, you know, a coworker or boss comes into our office and you know, starts taking all of their frustrations and feelings of the day and their life out on us because they know they're safe enough to. And we're just sideswiped. We feel like we were hit by a car. And it can be very difficult when those things happen to navigate your way through and to stay present. I know, because I then get caught up in all of my issues of when I was a child and now I'm helpless and there's nothing I can do. And disassociation is a wonderful nervous system survival tool, and it's how many of us end up so fractured, especially as healers. We end up fractured because we've had to disassociate so many times in such a traumatic, violent sort of world that we have all these parts and pieces. For me, I used to compare myself to cable TV. I had, you know,
many channels.
I had many different channels because I had to disassociate so many times that this, you know, trauma or experience had to get, you know, disassociated and wrapped up in bubble wrap and put away so I could move on. And then this would happen, and then this would happen. And the triggers would come out of nowhere. If someone looked the right way, or sounded the right way, or smelled the right way.
Like post-traumatic.
Yes, exactly. And I think a lot of women, especially a lot of women who are sensitive and healers, they've got a tremendous amount of post-traumatic stress that's going on. And they end up feeling fractured and lost and helpless and repeating the same patterns over and over, just because they're living in fight or flight. They have to be in complete survival, and they would love to be, you know, to be surrounded with people who are like them, you know, who can give as well as take, you know, but in order to feed their family or stay safe or just work through the pain of their past because they don't know any better, they stay in these situations, and it's difficult to learn how to navigate that. How to navigate when you're in the war and you don't know that you have a choice, or you can't see any options out, how to stay sane.
And I think there's a real lack of understanding of what that means to be a highly sensitive person, or an empath, or whatever your high sensitivity is. I think there's a lack of understanding. So there's a lack of even in our own selves, if we're highly sensitive or empathic. I wonder how much real support and acknowledgement and understanding there is of that in our society. What do you think?
I think there's very little support and understanding, and it's been coming out in the youth. There's a diagnosis that's becoming very popular, and it's a sensory disorder. More and more kids that I'm seeing, and I work with girls. I work with, you know, high school girls and junior high girls as well who have sensory disorders, because they're so highly sensitized to their environment, and they've got no skills. You know, they come from a family of, let's say, good German stock or good, strong women who were able to power through, who were able to numb themselves and had tools to numb themselves, caffeine and tobacco and shopping and gambling and
busyness.
So they came from a family where the women might have been sensitive, but they learned how to power through it, and then their health suffered. But then these things get passed down through generations, and so now we're having these girls and these boys who have these sensory disorders.
Yeah.
You know, they have to adjust their socks 20 times because their socks are so uncomfortable. They have to have clothes which absolutely feel comfortable because otherwise they can't function. Fluorescent lights make them crazy. Too much noise makes them crazy.
So is that a disorder? Or is
It's
it an
being
awareness that maybe the rest of us lack?
I think that their nervous systems are not able to function in the high energy world that we've created. And so without any judgment, okay, we've created this high energy world and we have to learn how to live with it, because unless we're going to move to Tibet, you know, and live in a cave, we have to figure out how to live with all of the noise and all of the stuff pounding on us. You know, and unfortunately our issues as women are being passed down to our kids, and it needs to come on both sides. You know, the kids need to learn how to navigate, but then again, on a society or family way, we have to create environments for the good of ourselves and the good of our kids, where the sensations are dialed down. It's one of the reasons I love Anderson Gardens in Rockford, is because it's Japanese gardens, and all of the architecture is very simple, clean, and soothing. It's not overstimulating.
And there's an order to it.
There's an order
which
to
I
it.
enjoyed when I had that experience with you. I really enjoyed it. There's a flow.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And when we create those spaces in our lives, like I've created with my space, then that helps keep us on track.
Yeah.
But this sensitivity, this hyper sensory awareness to ourselves and our environment, these kids are victims, you know, to it. They're dialed up. They don't know how to take care of themselves. They don't have the same tools that, you know, their parents had, because they're kids, so they can't, you know, they don't have all the money that they could ever want, and they're not supposed to drink caffeine, and they're not supposed to do these things. And they're really struggling, and the parents are struggling because they don't know what to do to help their kid.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to refer to my grandson and my eldest son. My grandson probably has I don't see it as a disorder. I see it as a gift. But I also hear what you're saying. Where when he comes in from being at school, he's in pre-K now, and this has been him from the get-go, all the clothes come off except the underwear.
Sure.
Yeah. And that's okay in his home.
And
he knows that when he goes out, he has to put on the clothes, and he has to, but he feels a little bit confined, but he adjusts because that's how it is out in the world.
Right.
But in his home, he's totally free, because with that sensitivity comes all his creativity and his personality and his character and all his colors. Right. And so, my goodness, we wouldn't want to dampen that or put out his light in any way.
So we create a safe space where they can be who they are. And instead of trying to change them into something else, we teach them the tools to survive in the world and what they need to do in order to stay sane. And part of that is creating an environment for ourselves that gives us what we need, especially if we're highly sensitive, because we're not going to get it out in the regular world. We have got to create safe havens for ourselves, because no one else is going to do it for us. And we have to value and acknowledge that we need those, because otherwise we are losing some of the most beautiful parts of ourselves because we can't stand to be in our own skin.
Yes, yeah. That's one of the reasons many years ago, I don't know how long I've known you, Rita, it's been a while now, but many years ago, how I was drawn to you was for exactly that reason, and what you've been able to create at Inside. It continues to be that same feeling of this is safe and it's dialed down. So it's a place that I can come to where the world that can be overstimulating for me is left outside when I come inside.
Right. and I had to do it for my own sanity.
Yes.
I couldn't hold, let's say, a regular job because I just didn't fit into that. And so I had to blaze the trail and say, I've got to do this if I'm going to enjoy my life at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it comes out of necessity.
Yeah.
And where I create an environment that I can go to on a regular basis that fills my well and keeps me sane and stable, and then other people can come and get what they need too. And it's why I'm good at what I do, is because I know what it's like to be highly sensitive in an overstimulating world where the expectations are that you're supposed to be an extrovert, you're supposed to be in the middle of it and love the hustle and bustle, and you're supposed to want to work on Wall Street. You're supposed to want to be, that person that does everything and is everything and accomplishes and moves mountains. And having an acceptance of, maybe that has to be somebody else that does that, because this is what I need to do to enjoy my life.
Yeah. That's interesting because I had to do that for myself as well, create something that I could make a living from that matched who I was. But for a long time, I was in corporate. And it's interesting. What I was able to do is I would go into these companies that were chaotic and dysfunctional, and I would say to myself, oh my gosh, there's no way I can come every day and be in this environment. So what can I do? And so I would take time and I would assess and I would observe, and I'm like, okay. And then about after a month or so, I would go to the president of the company and say, okay, so you've said you've been doing the same thing for 10 years and you're kind of stuck here and you just are doing the same thing over and over again, which is insanity.
Sure.
So, but you're also saying that you want to get over here. Well, I've done an assessment in this past month, and I can tell you how to get over there. But you're going to have to do A, B, C, D. And all of that was cleaning up the chaos and the dysfunction and getting rid of all the unnecessary stuff that was blocking the core of where they really wanted to get to. So I had to create, in order to make a living in corporate, I had to create the company to be in a flow.
Sure. So that you could actually work there. Yeah. So you could bring them into alignment.
Yeah.
So we only have a few minutes left, so I think we should wrap up for the day. So this is the Healership Path, and we invite you to join the movement. So please go to inspiremassage.com and join our daily email. You get free membership into the Healership Path, and where we keep everybody, all of us healers and women and sensitives who want to make a big difference in the world, on track. Because I know how lonely it can feel in this world, and you don't have to be that way. You're not alone, and we've got lots and lots of wisdom and experience and support for those of us who are more creative and more sensitive and can't necessarily bully our ways through the world. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much for joining us. And what's the topic tomorrow?
Oh gosh, I don't know off the top.
Oh, okay. Well, we change topics every day, and there are different parts and pieces of being whole and healthy. And so we're excited for what we'll be sharing with everybody tomorrow. So I hope you have a great day. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.